So thanks for having me today. As Nick said, my name is Melanie, and I grew up in a small town in western Quebec called Quio, and I'm from a long line of resilient entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinkers and community developers. And what I've learned from my family and those from my hometown is the importance of doing good and trying to be better, not just because we can, but because we should. And sometimes that meant taking the hard road, even when there were other options available. Because even when things are hard, they're usually often worthwhile. And I'll come back to this idea of being worthwhile in just a second. So this philosophical approach stayed with me after I left my town, and it helped have an impact on the way that I think about alternative business models, how that I can be a good partner and parent and neighbor. And this notion of daily practice is something that sticks with me, and not in the yoga sense of the words, although maybe it should have, but more in the what are those little pieces that I could be doing every day that's going to help me be better and do better. So what can I be learning from those that I'm interacting with? Now, a lot has changed in the world since I left my hometown. And the world is big. The problems that we are facing are bigger. Things like gender inequality and racism and failing economies and lack of education, and the scale and complexity of these problems is growing, and it's dizzying, and it's upsetting. And you can feel an overwhelming sense of despair as we move forward. And I think of my kids in these moments, and I think, what is it going to be like for them whenever they set out on their own, and they're leaning into their dreams and finding what their passions are? Do I want them, when they get a chance to do better, to be better? Absolutely, I do. Do I want it to be hard for them? Absolutely not. But I always wanted to feel that they felt as though it was worthwhile. So thankfully, I believe wholeheartedly that there is hope, that with daily practice, step by step, brick by brick, we can build a future and using business as a force for good. So now for a number of years, I've been running an entrepreneurship center at the University of Guelph called CBaSE, which is a Center for Business and Student Enterprise, and we're housed within the College of Business and Economics. Now, CBaSE means a lot of different things to different people. So for some, it's a place for them to come and attend some of our, really neat and informative events. For others, it's a place for them to get course credit by being paired with a community group or an organization that will allow them to help work through some of their business challenges. And yet for others, it's a chance for them to start and grow and launch a business. Now, threaded across all of these areas is my hope for them that they learn of a better and new way of doing business. That's really it is. That's my hope for them. That they would walk away from one of our events feeling inspired to ask really provocative questions that's going to help challenge the status quo. Or perhaps, by working with a community group, they see the skill set that they have as being transferable across a number of different sectors and industries. Or better yet, they see a gap in the market and realize that they have what it takes to build something that's going to help address those problems. So, to help make a positive difference in the world. And so what we realize over the years, and this is true for all of us, is that whenever we graduate, our students have one of two options. They either work for themselves or they work for somebody else. Now, my hope is that whatever route that they choose, that they recognize that they have the skill set and the drive and the passion in order to make a positive difference wherever their path leads them. So we need more people with better daily practices in order to make that happen. We need to disassemble this narrative that says that business is solely driven by individuals that are, they're fueled by competition and money. What we realize is that there are many strong business leaders out there today that are proving this narrative wrong. You can do better, you can be better, and you can make money at the same time. You can run a business that's going to help tackle some of the biggest challenges of our current existence right now. And many of those businesses, I'm really proud to say, exist here in Guelph. They need to be telling their story so that other passionate change makers will hear it and will think about ways in which that they can help solve problems that's keeping them up at night. So this self-determining action can lead to incredible ripple effects. It's going to affect economies, communities, cultures. This is really what is required to have that path forward. And really all it took was daily practice. That first step along their entrepreneurial journey that is proof that brick by brick, step by step, we can make positive change by using business as a force for good. Now, the startups that come through our hub incubator are asked to assess their growth and impact against a light version of the B Corp assessment model. So we want them to be thinking about the roles and responsibilities that they have as a business owner. We want them to be thinking about what are the potential risks that they could be having, or what are the possible contributions that they could be making. Essentially, we want them to be thinking that yes, their ROI, or their return on investment, is important, but so too is their SROI, their social return on investment. Now, for a long time, social enterprises were often misunderstood as a not-for-profit. And what we would find is that people would assume that if you were in the business of doing good, you couldn't or you weren't able to make any money. And if you were making money, you were likely structured like a charity or a not-for-profit where those funds were reinvested into your cause. So we know now that that is not true, thankfully. We know that our goal is to ensure that everyone sees business and entrepreneurship as a transferable skill and not as a bad word. And we want to make sure that our students understand this, that if you want to be in the business of doing good, then guess what? You need to stay in business. And so having the skills and savviness of creating a thriving business that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to fuel your passions, solve problems, and contribute to healthy communities, that's a win-win-win. Now, everyone knows that the key to having a thriving business is to make sure that we set goals and that we plan. Now, I read a lot, and a lot of what I have seen over the years talks about companies that set out with their top 5 or top 10 goals for the quarter or the year. They have 3 and 5 year plans. They have benchmarking standards. They have year-to-date incremental records that they're measuring. They have productivity hacks and team-building exercises, and all the while what they're doing is they're putting these goals, these metrics in place to help propel their business forward. They do this because they want to grow. They want to be better than they were the day before. Now, there's a lot of talk this time of year about goal setting, mostly from a personal standpoint, but we do see a lot of businesses that are setting goals for themselves, but oftentimes they're one or the other. So it's either I want to increase sales, or I want to increase my daily activity, or I want to cut costs, or I'm going to practice mindfulness. But they're one or the other. Very rarely are we seeing them as being the same, applied to both our personal and our professional selves. So on one hand, we're talking about our business growth and output, and on the other hand, we're talking about our personal development and growth. Somewhere along the line, businesses became less personal, more automated. And they needed to be. Don't get me wrong, I realize this, but people create and manage businesses. People make decisions, or in some cases, people create programs to make decisions for us, but people here are at the helm. So wouldn't it hold true that if people are trying to be better people, would it not make sense then that businesses inevitably become better as a result of that? I hope so. This is my hope for us as we go forward. So I wanted to share this picture with you. A good friend of mine is a librarian, who I'm always teasing is way cooler than your typical librarian. Not that librarians are not cool. I don't want any fallout because of this. But I turn to him, and I'm always looking for what's trending within the business world, or what are some new and insightful things that I should be aware of that I can use to apply to both of my personal and professional self. So this picture is of an email that he sent me a little bit ago, and I'm making my way through it. And you can see where I've added to it along the way. I keep it at the front of my planner as a daily reminder for me to keep learning, to try to be better, to do better. And now, one of the reasons why I read as much as I do is because I'm trying to unlock this key finding where I can, hopefully discover, best practices for myself or potential role models or list building or planning tools that I could use to apply to both of my personal and professional selves. Now, I'm a multitasker, I'm a kill two birds with one stone kind of a girl, so I like to be able to read business and design books, hoping that together I'll be able to find something of use. And one of the things that I came across over the years is this book by Danielle Laporte called Firestarter Sessions. Has anybody here ever heard of Danielle Laporte? Okay, a couple of hands. So if you haven't already, I would really encourage you to look her up and to read this book. And it's going to help ignite this, whatever needs a wake-up call inside of you. So if you're side gigging right now and you're trying to figure out if this is really what you want to do in the direction that you want to take it, read the book. If your day-to-day needs a bit of a shake-up, read the book. So I picked up this book about 2 years ago, and that has really helped propel forward a lot of what we are working on within CBaSE, as well as in my personal life as well. So once you've read Firestarter Sessions, you are going to then pick up her second book called White Hot Truth. And in this book, she talks about creating where you belong. Creating where you belong. Now, this really struck a chord with me. So I took this picture of this page in this book, and I sent it to one of my team, and I said, you know what, we need to look at our programming, we need to evaluate our offerings, and we need to make sure that we are creating where we belong. So we decided that there were some things that came to us in abundance. It was very free-flowing, it was easy, it was fun, it got us a lot of recognition. And we decided, you know what, that's a good place for us to be. And then there were other things that were hard, like really hard, took a lot of our time, required a lot of data points in order to make a decision. It took more money than it should have as well. And so we realized that was a little trickier spot to be. So what we ended up doing is using the criteria of creating where we belong, we gave ourselves permission to move away from some of those activities that were causing a little bit more challenge. And making that decision was a lot easier. We were hanging on to doing things just because we had always done them. So when we got out of our own way, when we trusted our intuition, when we were able to make these changes, we were able to do more of what makes us better so that we could do better. Now, I'm not saying there won't be days where it's going to be hard. Of course there will be. I would be naive to stand up here in front of you and say otherwise. But just because those days are hard, what I want to make sure is that you ask yourself in those moments, is it still worthwhile? So if it still feels worthwhile, then keep going. You are on the right path. If it doesn't, then maybe you're not meant to create in that space. So I'm here to tell you that anyone can change the world. Anyone can try to make it better. Even a small town girl from Guelph, Quebec. You don't always have to do the big stuff. Sometimes all it takes is daily practice and a will to do better and to be better. So I ask you, what is your daily practice going to be? Thank you.